as we know them, are the means of contact built up by the thinker, polarized in his etheric body, and find their expression in the physical form in those nerve centers, brain cells, ganglia and plexus which exoteric science recognizes. Be that these senses for all purposes of present manifestation, have their focal point on the astral plane and are therefore largely under the stimulating action of the solar plexus, that great focal point in the center of the body which is the stimulating agent for most of the human family at this time. See that as the higher triangle comes into play, and the polarization steps up to the higher centers, the senses begin to make themselves felt on the mental level and man becomes aware on that plane. We have in the human body an interesting reflection of the transference of the polarization from the personality to the ego, or into the causal body, in the division that exists between the higher and the lower mental planes, and the dividing line of the diaphragm between the higher and the lower portions of the body. Below the diaphragm we have the four lower centers. 1. The solar plexus. 2. The spleen. 3. Organs of generation. 4. Base of the spine. Above are the three higher. 1. Heart. 2. Throat. 3. Head. In the microcosm we have the lower quaternary separated from the triad in a similar manner, and this analogy will bear pondering upon. By careful thought we can therefore work out the reflex action of the centers, and the senses from the standpoint of the different planes, remembering that as the centers are awakened the process will be threefold. First, the awakening on the physical plane, and the gradually increasing activity of the centers, until the probationary path is reached. This is paralleled by the increasing use of the senses, and their constant utilization for the identification of the self and its sheaths. Second, the awakening on the astral plane, and the gradually increasing activity of the centers, until the first initiation is reached. This is paralleled by the tremendously keen use of the senses for the purposes of discriminating between the self and the not-self. Third, the awakening upon the mental plane, and the gradually increasing activity of the centers and the senses. The effect in both cases tends to identification of the self with its own essence in all groups, and the rejection of the sheaths and the forms. This development is paralleled on the two higher planes simultaneously as in the lower, and as the astral senses come into perfected activity, the corresponding centers of force on the buddhic plane begin to function until the vibratory interplay between the two is consummated, and the force of the triad can be felt definitely in the personality via the astral. Again the corresponding vortices on the atomic level come into active vibration, as the mental centers become fourth-dimensional, till we have a wonderful fiery activity demonstrating on all the three planes. From the point of view of fire, 88-86 the fire of the manifested cosmos is septenary. The threefold God manifests through the seven fires. 1. Electric fire, the seven heavenly men. 2. Solar fire, evolution of the seven entities through their vehicles developing the seven principles. 3. Fire by friction, the seven chains. They are the seven centers of the Logos. A heavenly man manifests through a chain. 1. He is electric fire, the seven solar entities who inform each globe. 2. He is solar fire, evolution of the life through the forms, developing the seven principles. 3. He is fire by friction, the seven globes. Each heavenly man has seven principles. A man, the microcosm, manifests through his vehicles. 1. He is electric fire, the monad, a solar entity. 2. He is solar fire, evolution of the life through the vehicles in order to develop the seven principles. 3. He is fire by friction, the seven sheaths. 1. Atmic. 2. Buddhic. 3. Causal. 4. Mental body. 5. Astral body. 6. Etheric body. 7. Physical body. Physical plane. Man manifests in the three worlds. 1. Electric fire, the higher self. 2. Solar fire, the seven centers. 3. Fire by friction, the sheaths. 86. Leaving the aura and its colors out of temporary consideration, the evolutionary development marks an equally definite process. A. The vivification of the inner heat of the sheaths, or the tiny point of fire latent in every individual atom of matter. This process proceeds in all three bodies, at first slowly, then more rapidly, and finally simultaneously and synthetically. B. The bringing into activity from latency of the seven centers on all planes, beginning from the bottom upwards, until the centers, according to ray and type, are interrelated and coordinated. There are manifest 35 vortices of fire in the perfected adept, all of radiant activity and all interacting. See the vortices, or wheels of lambent flame, become interlinked by triangles of fire which pass and circulate from one to another, till we have a web of fiery lines, uniting centers of living fire, and giving truth to the statement that the sons of mind are flames. D. These centers reach this condition of perfection as the spirit, or will aspect takes ever fuller control. The unifying triangles are produced by the action of the fire of mind, while the fire of matter holds the form together in ordered sequence. So the interdependence of matter, mind and spirit can be seen and demonstrates to the eye of the clairvoyant as the coordination of the three fires. E. In the heavenly man and his body, a chain of globes. 89-87. The planetary chains. The seven heavenly men form the sun and the seven sacred planets. S. D. I. 100-155. Some of their names and qualities. A. The seven planetary logoi, or the seven spirits before the throne. B. The seven Kumaras. SD. III. 59-327. C. Seven solar deities. SD. I. 114. I. 228. I. 92-257. D. The primordial seven. SD. I. 116. E. The seven builders. SD. I. 152-153. F. Seven intellectual breaths. SD. I. 332. Note. G. The seven manas. SD. I. 488. H. The flames. SD. I. 258. They came from previous kalpas. SD. I. 99. Their nature is knowledge and love. SD. I. 275. SD. I. 619. The seven sacred planets are 1. Saturn. 2. Jupiter. 3. Mars. 4. Sun, substitute for another. 5. Venus. 6. Mercury. 7. Moon, substitute for another. Neptune and Uranus are not here enumerated, nor Vulcan. The orbit of Neptune includes apparently the entire ring pass knot. Vulcan is within the orbit of Mercury. Each one of the heavenly men manifests through a chain of seven globes. All the seven logoi influence a chain, but one of them is the incarnating entity. They influence A. Some globe in chain. B. Some plane. C. Some round. D. Some world. Period. E. Some root race. F. Some subrace. G. Some branch race. H. Some group. I. Some human unit. 87 likewise can be seen, and we need here to remember very carefully that the seven chains of a scheme are the expression of a planetary logos. The heavenly men are expressing themselves through a scheme of seven chains, and the emphasis has been laid on duly, perhaps, upon the dense physical planet in any particular chain. This has caused the fact of the chain importance to be somewhat overlooked. Each of the 7 chains might be looked upon as picturing the 7 centers of one of the heavenly men. The idea of groups of egos forming centers in the heavenly men is nevertheless correct, but in this connection the reference is to the centers of force on Buddhic and monadic levels. 90 Secret Doctrine, the sons of mind are spoken of as flames. In stanza VII, 4, these are the 3-tongued flame of the 4 wicks. The wicks are the sparks that draw from the 3-tongued flame shot out by the 7 flames. The spark hangs from the flame by the finest thread of foet. 88. In connection with this there is a fundamental point that must never be forgotten. These 7 heavenly men might be considered as being in physical incarnation through the medium of a physical planet, and herein lies the mystery of planetary evolution. Herein lies the mystery of our planet, the most mysterious of all the planets. Just as the karma of individuals differs, so differs the karma of the various logoi, and the karma of our planetary logos has been a heavy one, and veiled in the mystery of personality at this time. Again, according as the centers are active or inactive, so the manifestation differs likewise, and the study which opens up is of vast and abstruse interest in connection with the solar system. 5. The centers and initiation. We have dealt briefly with the evolution of the centers, with their function, their organization and their gradually increasing activity from a point of comparative inertia until they are consummated motion. Then they become living wheels of flame, distinguished by a dual motion of the periphery, and the inner revolving wheels, and by a 4th-dimensional effect, due primarily to the alignment of the inner subtler vortices with the comparatively exoteric etheric centers. This alignment is brought about eventually at initiation. At the time that initiation is taken, the centers are all active and the lower 4, which correspond to the personality, are beginning the process of translating the fire into the 3 higher. The dual revolution in the lower centers is clearly to be seen, and the 3 higher are commencing to be similarly active. By the application of the rod of initiation at the time of the initiation ceremony, certain results are achieved in connection with the centers which might be enumerated as follows. A. The fire at the base of the spine is definitely directed to whichever center is the object of special attention. This varies according to the ray, or the specialized work of the initiate. B. The center has its activity intensified, its rate of evolution increased, and certain of the central spokes of the wheel brought into more active radiance. These spokes, which are also called by some students lotus petals, have a close connection with the different spirali in the permanent atoms. Through their stimulation there comes into play one or more of the corresponding spirali in the permanent atoms on the 3 lower planes. After the 3rd initiation, a corresponding stimulation takes place in the permanent atoms of the triad, leading to the coordination of the Buddhic vehicle, and the transference of the lower polarization into the higher. See, by the application of the rod of initiation the downflow of force from the ego to the personality is tripled, the direction of that force being dependent upon whether the centers